20 minutes, I'm going to take you through the talent dynamic square. I really want you to listen to this presentation, not just to think about your own profile, but really to think about the profiles of the people in your team as well, because you're going to get to hear about all 8 of the profiles. So you can start to see not just about yourself and learning some more about yourself, improving your own self-awareness, but really learning about those in the team around you as well. So the first thing I want to share with you before I even go into the profiles is there's 2 ways to create value and there's 2 ways to create leverage. The first way to create value is through innovation. So this is coming up with new ideas, big strategies, maybe products or services, but it's innovating and putting something new together. The second way to create value down on this side is through timing. Making sure that things are being done in the right time and that they're really ear to the ground and very sensory. And the 2 ways to create leverage, the first one over here is through people. Right people, right place, right time, magnification of brands, using people to magnify. The second way to create leverage is through systems, making things much more efficient, making things multiplied rather than magnified. Now, when you look at your profile report, you're going to see that there's a page with a graph on it. And if you just turn to that graph right now, you're going to see you have a very unique graph with percentages that show your talent frequencies. And I'm going to go through what those different energies or frequencies mean. So you're going to see that there's a mixture in your profile of dynamo, blaze, tempo, and steel. So this is where the dynamo people sit. Dynamo people are very, very innovative, very creative, very strategic, really good at coming up with big, bold plans, wonderful at getting things started, usually pretty bad at getting things finished, but great at really getting those projects off the ground. So if you find that your profile, you've got very high dynamo energy, then you're likely to display those behaviors. Over on this side is blaze energy. So if you find that you've got a very high percentage of blaze in your profile, well then it's very likely that you're a people. So you're going to be really great up front, a cheerleader, a motivator, someone who really instills confidence in others, somebody who's great at leading from the front and building really, really strong relationships. And if you find that you've got high tempo in your profile, if the highest percentage is tempo, well then, unlike the dynamo who's very creative and innovative, you're very, very sensory with your ear to the ground. So whilst these people are described as having their head in the clouds, you're often described as having your ear to the ground. Very sensory, very, very connected, really great at making sure that the projects come to life, really great at making sure that the implementation is taken care of, and really good at sensing how everyone is in the team as well. So if you've got tempo energy as the highest, then that's likely to be the characteristics that you will display. And if steel is your highest, steel is over on this side, then it's very likely if your highest is steel that you're very systems orientated, really great with data, very analytical. Somebody who's really good with the detail and makes sure that all of the information has been analysed in detail. And you're going to be looking at making things much more efficient, not so much through people, much more about efficiency. So those are the 4 energies. And that will go already some way to explaining a little bit about how your profile has come about. So you're going to notice that you have a different percentage of each of those. And even though you might be sitting next to your neighbour who's the same profile, you're going to see you've got different percentages, which is perhaps going to explain a bit more about the differences between you, even though you're the same profile as well. So now why don't we look at the 8 profiles. I'm going to go through each of them in detail. So you can spend a bit of time hearing about your own profile, but you're going to get to hear about the profiles of the rest of the people too. Here's the creator profiles. Creators are very, very visionary, very strategic. They love creating new things. In fact, the more chance they get to create new things, the more happy they are. They love starting new projects. They're great at getting things started. They're always more excited about the new project than they are about the existing one. They tend not to be great at completing and finishing because they enjoy new projects so much. Very strategic, great at product creation, great at coming up with big, bold strategy. So the kinds of roles that you want to put them in are roles where they can create big strategy, roles where they can come up with new products, new ideas, roles where they can get things started, but maybe not roles where you expect them to really pay attention to the detail and finish things, because they're not going to be great at doing that. They're not going to be great at the project implementation. Now, famous creator to learn from, Richard Branson's a creator profile. I think at last count, Richard Branson had 360 businesses. And he doesn't actually run any of them. He knows he's not the best person to run them because creators make the best and the worst communicators at the same time. The best communicators because they're very, very visionary and very bold and they can share these very exciting visions. And the worst communicators because they move at such speed they really can lose the rest of the team. And so creators can end up getting quite frustrated with the team. So watch out for this as well. So put them into roles where they can really be at the start of those great projects, but using that visionary creative energy. And over on the right here, we have a star profile. Now, stars are also very creative because they're up here on the innovation side, but they're also on the people side as well. So they get really excited about innovating other people's creations. In fact, what stars love to do is draw attention to other creations that already exist. And stars are wonderful when you can put them into roles where they're involved in sales and marketing. In fact, sales is a great role for a star profile because they love nothing more than drawing attention and creating attraction to other people, to a product or a service or a group of people. But don't expect them to be in roles where they're going to do the detail. Don't expect them to be doing the financial analysis and the planning. In fact, as soon as you put them in the back office, they're really going to struggle. Make sure you've got them out front where they can really be connecting and meeting lots of people. Now, the star will always enjoy going out and doing that upfront selling, that upfront connecting, but don't put them in roles where you're expecting them to deliver to the customer afterwards. That's something where they lose a bit of interest as well. So they're much more excited about meeting new people, making that sale, going and meeting someone else. Put them into roles where they can shine the light on new projects. So where you're launching a new project in the company, or you've got something exciting that you're trying to launch, put the star up front. They'll create a lot of attention, create a lot of attraction, and they're really great at communicating. Of all the profiles, the star is the best at really influencing people, so they can get things on the agenda. So get them to do that, but don't put them in those roles where you're expecting them to do the detail. And a famous star profile is Oprah. And of course, Oprah knows that she creates so much attraction through her own personal brand. She knows that people, when she says, hey, look at this, people look at it. So this is what stars are great at doing, pointing at something and having you look at where their finger's pointing, not so much about pointing at themselves, which I think is sometimes what people think stars do. Oprah recently was invited over to Australia by the Australian Tourist Board. And of course, she was over there creating attraction, and all of a sudden, whilst it cost them a couple of $1 million, they will have made a couple of $1 billion because all of a sudden the world saw Australia and everybody followed to see where Oprah was growing, because that's really the power that the star has, is drawing people to have a look and see what they're doing. Over here on the left-hand side, we've got the mechanic profile. Now, also very, very innovative, very, very creative. In fact, sometimes mistaken for being a creative profile and put into roles where they're expected to be strategic, which is really quite a challenge for them, because where the creator is fantastic at getting things started and usually quite bad at finishing things, well, the mechanic is brilliant at finishing things, not so good at getting things started. Mechanics really excel where they can do problem solving. They're extremely incisive. They can look from a business perspective, see what the problem is immediately. They know how to solve it, but they don't just know how to solve it, they know how to make it better. They know how to make it more efficient. So a mechanic is always looking at creating efficiencies as opposed to creating new products or creating new strategies, and that's really the difference between them. So put them into roles where they can do that problem solving, where they can look at the efficiencies in the business, where they can use that really creative, innovative strength that they have to make things so much better and work much more smoothly and simply. Just like a car mechanic, you wouldn't go to the garage and tell the mechanic there was a problem with your car but not take your car with you. So you really need to show the mechanic something that they can improve. And I don't know if you're like me, but when I take my car to the garage, I have no idea what's wrong with it. And the mechanic looks at it and he can see straight away that it's the cam belt or whatever's wrong with it. And they look at you like, why didn't you understand? Because mechanics have this amazing incisive ability to see the problem straight away and know what needs to be done to fix it. So make sure you're putting them in those roles. But don't expect them to really pay too much attention to the social niceties. Sometimes their communication style can be a bit more challenging with the rest of the team. So when they find a way that they can really communicate effectively, maybe through a star or a supporter profile, then that message really gets across in a more effective way for them as well. And a famous mechanic that you can learn from, Ray Kroc. Now, Ray Kroc didn't invent McDonald's. He's not the creator that came up with it, but Ray Kroc met the McDonald's brothers and he could see a way that he could really allow that business to grow significantly. He created all the projects and all of the systems that allowed them to turn their business into a very effective worldwide franchise. If it hadn't been for Ray Kroc, who knows where McDonald's would have been today. So he created all those systems in such a way that the average age of the employees in McDonald's is 17. You don't actually need any experience to work there because they teach you everything. In fact, the manuals tell you script by script, moment by moment, what you should be doing and how you should be doing it. It even tells you what time certain music should play. And that's the real benefit of the mechanic, is making things work so smoothly. It can be replicated really simply. So those are the people on the innovation side. Let's come down here now to this tempo energy. And whilst these people have their head in the clouds, these people down here have their ear to the ground. They're much more connected, much more sensory. And the first one here we have is a trader profile. Whereas the star is fantastic at going out and doing the sales and marketing, but not so good at the delivery, the trader is the best person to be doing the delivery. They're wonderful at project implementation and they're fantastic at customer service. In fact, service is their greatest strength. Where you can have the trader delivering what the star has been selling and making sure the customer actually receives it and gets it on time and gets it in the way that it was promised and it gets delivered that way, it's a great role for them to take on because they're really good at project implementation. They're really good at making sure that whatever it is that we're trying to do actually gets accomplished. And I meet lots of traders, they always have big long lists of all the jobs that they're wanting to tick off. One of the challenges the trader has, because they get through so much activity, is they struggle sometimes to really see the bigger picture. They struggle sometimes to see that big picture and to see that big strategy. So get them focused on that detail, get them focused on the delivery, and make sure they're clear about what the priorities are. But definitely have them looking after your key customers. We know traders that look after key accounts, and they've got such great relationships with those customers that they know those customers personally, go on family visits with them and talk to them about what's been happening on their holidays, really know the customers very well, but they don't like being up front doing the selling. So they'll build really strong relationships, but they don't want to be out there meeting new people. That's what the star enjoys doing. So again, you can see already, putting people into very specific roles is going to allow them to really accelerate the level of trust and flow in the team. And that's a great role for a trader. Famous trader profile, George Soros. He's been in the news a lot recently with the recession that's going on all around. And he was asked, how does he know the right time to sell? Now, you would think George Soros, he's trading in billions of dollars of stocks and shares. You'd think, he'd have this really detailed system for knowing the right time to sell. But he actually said he knows when he gets a twinge in his back. It's really about how he feels. It's really about being very sensory. And these people down here are very sensory. They're really connected to how they feel and connected to those around them as well. Over here, we've got a dealmaker profile. Now, of all the profiles, the dealmaker is the most networked. They're the people who have the biggest amount of connections. But not just an amount of connections, they know these people as well. Real true connections. Not that they're just out there networking and meeting people, but they're really getting truly connected. When you meet a dealmaker, you can sometimes feel like you're actually being interviewed because they want to ask you so many questions about yourself. They're naturally very curious people. They find that it's very important to them to know as much about you as possible so they can really find a way that they can be in service. This is the wonderful thing about a deal maker. Now, have you ever played Join the Dots, or your kids have played Join the Dots? You play that game, and as you're putting the dots together, eventually you realize it's a house or a dog or something. Well, what deal makers are great at doing is playing Join the Dots with people. They meet two people and they instinctively know why those two people should be coming together. They know about the projects going on across the business. They know the detail about who's working on what and how that's going to impact on the bottom line. So they bring the right people together to make sure that projects are working really nicely. And of course, they're great at bringing people to the table and doing the peacekeeping and making sure that collaboration is really high, because for them, people getting on and working well and working seamlessly in the team environment is super important. So they'll always be the people making sure that everyone's feeling included as well. So great roles where they can be doing that peacekeeping, where they can be ensuring that high level of collaboration and bringing key people to the table, bringing qualified people to the table, maybe driving some of those leads through the business as well. And a famous deal maker, but of course, don't get them involved in the systems, because they're always going to value the people over the system. So don't be expecting them to be following those systems or certainly creating those systems either. For them, the telephone is the most important thing. It's got all their contacts in. I think most of the deal makers I know have 2 telephones. They know so many different people. And a famous deal maker profile, Donald Trump. Now, Donald Trump, he's a deal maker, again, who hasn't ever created anything. He didn't need to create anything because he knows that he's actually created all of his value through his network, through the fact that he's so available and so well connected. People know if they've got a great real estate deal, they know that he's the person to call. Now, Oprah is someone you can't get through to if you try and call her. She's actually created a lot of her wealth because she knows that by being actually unavailable, she's more attractive. You only get to speak to Oprah if you get invited on her show and she interviews you. Whereas Donald Trump, you actually can get hold of him. If you've got a good enough real estate deal, well, you can get through to his team, chat to them about it, and they'll put you through to Donald Trump. So he knows that he's created all his value through the size of his network and the depth of connections. This is what deal makers do really well. They're constantly looking at ways of driving that value and building those relationships. And over here, we have an accumulator. Now, of all the profiles, the accumulator is the most risk averse. They're the safest. When they say it's a good time to do something, it's a good time. If it's not a good time to do something, then it's not a good time to do it. Now listen to your accumulator. Of all the profiles, the accumulator can be one of the most introverted by nature. So when they do actually step up and say, I don't think this is such a good time because of this reason, and you don't listen to them, you know what? You're going to really miss a big trick. Now, the thing with accumulators is they have a natural ability to gather information and analyze information. They love it. They love the detail. They love the information, so they do the research. They do the research thoroughly. So when they tell you that it might not be a good time to do something, it's because they've done the research, right? So choose to ignore them at your own peril, but it's not just a gut feeling that they have. They really have looked at it. And my friends who are up here, who are constantly coming up with new ideas, and excited about those new projects, when someone down here tells you they don't think it's a good idea for you to do it, well, you're not so excited about hearing that, right? We meet accumulators all the time who are being told they need to be more positive. Well, I tell you what, it's pretty hard to be more positive when you're telling someone that it isn't going to work. So think about the way that you're getting them to share information, because it's the fact that they can see what's going to go wrong that really creates their value. Now, not such a famous person, but my dad is an accumulator profile. And we don't get a lot of sunny weather here in the UK, as you know. But we had a lovely sunny day recently, and I had a barbecue with all the friends around. I called my mum and dad, said, come and join us. And my dad said, it's going to rain at 3. And I said, don't be ridiculous, it's a lovely sunny day. So he turned up with an umbrella. Anyway, at 3:10 it rained, and he had his umbrella. And he didn't need to say, I told you so, because he'd already told me so. This is the thing about accumulators. They're going to let you know when it's going to rain in business. Now, if you don't choose to get an umbrella or to stay inside and go out at a different time, it's your choice, but the accumulator will have told you so. So listen out for them, because they are very much on the introverted side, all right? Don't try and make them more positive. Allow them to share the value in a way that's of real benefit to all of you as well. Now, if you don't believe me, the richest man in the world right now is an accumulator profile. Warren Buffett. He's an accumulator, and he hasn't created anything in his life. It's all about the timing, and it's all about the detail. And actually, a famous quote, he said quite recently that in a recession, people will always chew gum and shave. So he bought Wrigley and Gillette. And accumulators know this. They just know the safe time to do things. So mark my words. All right, over here we have, and the roles that you want to put them in, by the way. The best roles for the accumulator, project management is a great role because they have a really great sense of timing and detail as well. So they're really good at making sure that those deadlines are hit. And they're great in some of the financial roles as well. They'll really pay attention to that detail. We find quite a lot of lawyers and HR people in these roles as well, where they really have to have a lot of detailed information and knowledge because they're great at accumulating that level of knowledge. But don't expect them to be in roles where they're going to be doing selling and marketing and driving traffic through dealing with the customers up front. That's not something that's going to make them feel particularly comfortable. All right, over here we have Lord profile. And the Lord profile is the best one to put in charge of the money. Lords are really great at controlling in detail. And so they'll control the information, they'll control the data, they'll control the assets, they'll really keep a tight handle on things. Now, in the same way that the deal maker is really great at playing join the dots with people, remember? Well, the Lord is great at playing join the dots with data. So make sure that they've got data and information, because they'll only make a decision on something if they've actually got the information in front of them. But a Lord can look at a spreadsheet, they can analyze that information, and it tells them a whole story. The whole join the dots come together just by looking at that information. And they can decide what course of action needs to be taken as long as they've got the information in front of them. Ask them to make a decision based on their gut feeling or what everyone else is saying, and they're really not going to want to do that because they're going to want to make sure that they're able to go through that information. But that way they'll be able to give you a really informed answer. And they're going to be the best people at making sure that you're managing your P&L accurately. So they're going to be looking at the cost controls. They're going to be making sure there's good controls in place to make sure that the costs are maintained effectively. They're really good at making sure that proofreading, so they're really great at making sure that the I's have been dotted and the T's have been crossed. In fact, give them a document to go through and they'll really make sure it's super accurate before it gets published as well. So great roles for them are where they can be in those areas of control, whether it's distribution, whether it's the finance areas, but they can have a tight control and really make sure that the costs are being looked after. But don't expect them to deal in social niceties. They'll always value the task over the social niceties. So they might not enjoy so much, again, the networking and being out front. Allow them to really have that area where they can get focused on the detail. And a famous Lord profile, Lakshmi Mittal, who's actually the richest man in England at the moment. Lakshmi Mittal, who owns Mittal Steels and has bought up the steel industries that haven't been performing. And the way that Mittal runs the company, it's not through having all these people and having big discussions and networking and bringing people in to do deals. It's really about the numbers. So if he's looking to buy a company and he's wanting to make sure that he gets it, well, he just goes back and looks at the numbers. And as long as he can show that the numbers stack up and that there's profit, then the deal will go through. But it's not about the schmoozing and the champagne. It's really about the detail and the data. His companies every week are reporting on a lot of KPIs, a lot of detail, and he knows that's how he makes the best decisions about the company, through the KPIs, through measuring what's going on. Great thing, that's what Lords will do, is always measure. Over here we've got the supporter profile. Now, all the profiles make great leaders, and I think you've probably got a sense that there's a time and a place that each of them should be leading, based on what's going on in your business, what's happening in your team, what projects you're doing. But of all the profiles, the supporter makes the best leader of people. They make the best team leaders. So they're really great at being out front, motivating, cheerleading, inspiring teams. Whereas the star's great at creating lots of attraction from big groups of people, the supporter's wonderful at creating real loyalty from a small group. So people really enjoy working for the supporter profile. They really enjoy the fact that it builds their confidence, that they're able to perform to a higher level. And a supporter will see potential in people that they don't see in themselves, and they know how to just draw that out. Now, most of the supporters we meet kind of wonder, well, what kind of role should I be doing? I'm not particularly creative, so I don't come up with the strategy that well. I'm not so good at the project implementation. I'm really not so good at the detail and the data, so they wonder where they fit in. Well, great roles still, sales and marketing, great roles for supporter profiles, but any role where they can be upfront and leading the team and really inspiring others to perform to a high level is where they're going to have the most impact. Now, Jack Welch is a famous supporter profile. Jack Welch, who headed up General Electric, quarter on quarter, they kept consistently improving their performance. And Jack Welch would always say, this isn't about me, it's about surrounding myself with people who are so much more talented than I am. So supporters know as long as they've got that great team around them, they can really inspire and draw it out of them. Just don't expect them to be in the back office doing the detail. Don't expect them to be analysing the information, because that's going to just stop all that blaze energy from being out front. So put them into those roles where they really can be leading those teams.